what we will be doing is we will be talking about data types. Now what are data types? So first again let's try and break down this word data types. Thus this data type is something that will define the type of the data that is stored in a variable. Now let's go back into the previous video, or let's just memorize or try to recollect what we discussed in the previous video, and let's take that example of book, shirt and hair comb. So what we discussed in that video, that we kept the book in the bookshelf, the shirt in the cupboard and the hair comb in the drawer. Now let's so can you keep the shirt in the bookshelf? No. Can you keep the let's say hair comb in the bookshelf? No. Thus what this example says that the things that we need to store should be stored at some specific space only. We can't keep anything anywhere. At least we won't do that. So similarly in programming, we can't store anything in any variables. To store a different type of data, we need a different type of variables. So thus with this knowledge, let's move ahead and see what are the different types of data types in Python. So the very basic data types in Python are of the three types. There are more and we will discuss later, but let's stick to the basics right now. And the very basic data types in the Python are the three. So the first one is strings, second is numeric, and third is Boolean. So now let's start with the first one. First one is the string data type. Now what is this string data type? Strings are simply a sequence of characters. So let's again try to simplify. So what are sequence of characters? Sequence of characters are nothing but the words. Let's say that string can be some username, name of the city, or anything, any word that you need to store in a variable. So these are called as strings. So the words in Python are called as strings. So now let's try and define a variable that will contain string. Again, before we move to the practical implementation, the value that is a string value that has to be enclosed in double quotes. So let's go to the previous file where we defined a variable named username. Here we can see that the username contains a string value. Okay, right? It's a string value. That is, it's a word, thus it's a string value. So here we can see that the string value is enclosed in this double quotes, right? And the password value, that is a number or a numeric value, that is in. So what this states that, so with this what we understand that string value should be enclosed in double quotes, otherwise it will give us error. So strings, so remember this always, the strings are enclosed in double quotes. So with this let's move ahead and let's try and define some more variables of string type. Okay, so let's say name is equals to John, and let's try printing it. Name. So at this stage we all know what will be the output, John. Now here we know that it is a string data type because it is already enclosed in double quotes, and it is a word. Now how to verify whether it is of that string data type or not? So there is a method, again an inbuilt method in Python called as a type method. So what this type method does is it returns, or it gives us the type of the type of the data that is stored in the variable. So now how to write a type function? So type, and in this we will pass the variable. So what we will pass in a type function? The type of the data that we need to check for the variable. So here we need to check the type of data for name variable. So we have passed name into this type, and let's try and run it. Okay. So here it's printing only John because we called the type method but we didn't print anything. So this type method has to be inside this print. Okay. So this type method has to be inside the print. Thus whatever it returns should be printed on our output screen. So now let's run it again. And here we can see class str. Now str is a short form for string. So thus this says that value of the data in it is of string type. Thus we have verified. Now when we can use the type method, when we can use this type method when we want to check whether the variable contains a specified value or not. Let's take an example that you are developing some application, and in that from the user you are expecting only float decimal value. Okay. You are expecting only decimal value or only string value, and let's say user enters a numeric value. So how to check whether the user has entered a specific value or not? So at that time this type method will come in very handy, or sometimes when we do such kind of experiments that we did right now, this method comes very handy. So now let's keep the discussion for string short for now. We will see some more functionalities of the string ahead in the upcoming videos. So now let's move ahead to the second data type. So second one is numeric data type. Now there in numeric there are three types of data types. The first one is integer. Integer is something that will store only real values, okay, and the another one is float. Float is something that will store only decimal values. The value that has in decimal has to be stored in a float variable. So the decimal value in Python is called as a floating number, and the real value is called as an integer. And the third one is a complex type. We have done this complex in our school basics. So first one is the real part, and second one is the imaginary part. So let's try and define these things again, and let's first define an integer variable. So let's say we are defining age of the user. So age of the user, let's say it's 18, and let's print it, and let's again try and run this file. So here we can see 18, so it was printed, and let's again confirm whether it is of a string type, integer type or not. So again here we will call the type method, and we will pass age in it. So let's run the file. Here we can see class is equals to int. Thus 18 is of the integer type. Now let's move ahead with this knowledge and try to define and experiment with the floating values that are decimal values. So let's take a variable named temp, that stands for temperature, short form for temperature, temp, and let's store the value of the temperature at the moment. So let's say the value of the temperature is 25.65. okay, 25 point, okay, it seems that my point isn't working. Okay, 25.65, and let's again print it. So print temperature, and with this let's again print the type. So print type for temp as well. So now let's run this file and see again what will be the output. So here we can see, and class is equals to float. So what we discussed is verified, that a decimal value is called as floating point in Python, and the data type is called as float. Now the last one of this discussion of the numeric type is the complex number. So complex number has two parts, a real part and an imaginary part. So while defining the value for this, we need to define both, and if we don't define the other one, the Python system will define it automatically. So now let's define first. So let's name the variable example, and it's a very bad name for an example, but you can think of a better name and try with that. So let's say example, and let's name it 1 plus 5j. 1 plus 5j. Okay, 1 plus 5j. So in computers or in Python, the real part is represented by an integer value, and the imaginary part, that the I part. Let's say that in the complex number, the imaginary part is denoted by I in mathematics. Thus in computers or in Python, it is represented by j. So this is our complex variable. Now so let's print it, and let's again verify its type. So print and type, and let's pass example to it, and let's run the file. So again here we can see 1 plus 5j, and class is complex. 1 plus 5j and class is complex. So with this we have seen three of our data types, that is numeric, in the numeric three of the types: integer, floats and complex. The last type of the data type that is in Python, or the last basic data type, that is Boolean. Now what is a Boolean data type? A Boolean data type sometimes are also called as bool. Now Boolean data type has strictly only two values, either true or false. So let's again, and how we will assign it to a variable, as we assign the other values to a variable, similarly we will assign true or false. And this, now why we are assigning value true and false to it? So this comes in handy when we are checking some conditionals or such things, so that you will get as we go ahead in the course. So for now, let's just define a variable with a Boolean value. So let's say value is equals to true. Again, keep one thing in mind, that the true and false, the initials of both of these words has to be capital in Python, otherwise it will give you an error. Thus your T for the true is capital, and let's print value and type value, and it has to be enclosed in the print method. And let's run the file. Here we can see true was printed and class is bool. So as we discussed, that Boolean is also sometimes called as bool. So with this, let's end the discussion of the data types. So there are at the basic level there are three data types: strings, numeric. Again, numeric is divided into three: integer, floats, and complex. And the last one is Boolean. Boolean can hold only two values: true and false. Okay. Now let's say you have a variable. Again, let's give it a name var. Var stands for short form for the variable. Okay, so let's say you have a variable var, and it has a floating value, so 12.34. But you need an integer value for your application, or the requirement for your application is integer value. So now, how to convert this floating value into an integer value? So in this concept in programming is called as typecasting. The type is float, and we need to cast it, that is, we need to change it to integer. So how it is done in Python? So let's define another variable, or let's directly print it. So what we will do is print an int, and in this int we will pass var. Now what is this? What we just did was int is a class, as we saw. So the anything that we want to convert into int, string or float respectively has to be passed inside the method of that class respectively. So here the method for type conversion into the int is int, and the variable is var. So we passed it into the method. So let's run this file. So here we can see it was printed. So the value 12.34 was typecasted into 12. So let's say now we have a value here that is 12, and let's say we want to convert it into float. So what we will do? Yes, if you are guessing it, and if you have guessed it right, so what it will be is float, and here we have passed the variable whose value we want to typecast. So now let's run the file again. Here we can see 12.0. Similarly, we can typecast any value that we want. We can typecast into complex as well, so it will get an imaginary part that will be 12 plus 0j. Thus this typecasting also comes in handy when we develop an application, and if we are expecting some floating value from the user, and if user enters an integer value, so rather than throwing up an error, what we can do is we can internally change the value, thus enhancing the user experience without throwing any value and serving the purpose of our application as well. So now I think this video is getting a bit longer, so let's end our discussion for this video, and let's catch up in another video.